Hello. This speaker has been recorded at a meeting of Addictive Eaters Anonymous. For more information, visit our website www.aeainfo.org.
Thank you, Leonie. My name is Robyn and I am an addictive eater. Now I'm in the hot seat without lipstick. But just to let you know, I did put my Red Door perfume on. And I had a wee laugh when I did that because I do that before a Zoom meeting. And I suddenly realised, who can smell it, Robyn? We're on a Zoom meeting. But anyway, yes, my name is Robyn, like I said, and I am an addictive eater. And I haven't given too much thought about what was going to happen, but it is so good to have a label. That's all I can say about that. I came in here like most people did, that do, because, I had this problem with food. I couldn't stop eating. And for me, there was the weight, and I thought I was going to die because I'd eaten so much one night that my heart was racing that much that I thought I was going to die. I wanted out of the hell that I was in my head, but I certainly didn't want to die. But I didn't know what else to do. But that didn't actually stop me from getting up the next morning when all that had passed, and I had that slither of cake, making the kids' lunch, and I had that piece of cake which started me again. It's Friday night, and I don't have to sit and think, it's Friday night, let's see what we can eat. And I learnt the word binge when I came in here. I'd never used that sort of word. It was just what could I eat. And so I think Friday night would have been a really good binge night. Basically the whole weekend. Monday would be Weight Watchers. It's so good to go to a Monday night meeting, and I don't have those scales in front of me hoping that I can lose at least 50 grams because I knew what I'd done in the weekend, but I hadn't told anybody. I don't know how many times I went to Weight Watchers. The local little Weight Watchers, I often think of Kay when she talks about going to a kilo club and making out that she had, jogged all the way or biked all the way. And I thought of the times that I used to go from Edendale to Wyndham to do that and for the weigh-in, and everybody there and what they're thinking. And it just hearing people share their experience just brings it all back. And I need to be at meetings to hear that. I need to be reminded of what it was like, because it's not like that today. I hopped in my car and I came to my meeting, and I left my little house that I've got that I never ever thought I would ever have. We lived down south before we moved to Christchurch, and many, many years ago, the thought of buying a house was the furthest thing from my mind. I thought that will never ever happen. I could never see us buying a house. I got married young. I had children young, 2 boys, and I married a man that drank. And I married a man that drank, I found out later. And life was just like step 1 says, it was unmanageable, totally unmanageable. And I tried to control and fix everything, and that didn't work. So when it was once suggested about buying a house, and back then, a house in Edendale, quarter-acre section, a good solid 3-bedroom brick home would have been $17,000. And there was no way. I couldn't see that. I thought there's no way we'll ever be able to afford to buy a house. But life then was still very much a big secret to what I did with the food. And the longer I've been around and the more meetings I come to, the more I see what my life was like. How much I lived within my head, how much I didn't share any of my secrets about eating. Just recently, somebody passed comment about I was somewhere, it could have been possibly at work, that, how they ate the biscuits and hid them. And I said I used to get the Mallow Puff packet and I'd eat the rows at the front, and then I'd turn them round so that when my kids looked in the cupboard, they thought they weren't opened because there was the ones at the front, but the ones at the back had all gone. And that's what I used to do. I used to buy 16 litres of ice cream and have it in the freezer, and it was goody gumdrop, and that's full of lollies. And I used to go out with a teaspoon just backwards and forwards. Might as well have got a plate full of it and sat down and ate it. But no, couldn't do that because that meant that I was eating it. And today, the insanity, I see that insanity. It's like the chocolate buttons that I bought to make Easter eggs for them, I'd get up and get a handful just in and out of the freezer. And the biscuits, instead of sitting down with the packet or the tin or the carton of Girl Guide biscuits, no, just get up and down, up and down. But I never saw anything wrong in that. I really didn't. And of course, hiding biscuits from our dog, that I didn't want the dog to see that I was eating them, so I'd shove them up my sleeve and go up to the bedroom, leave the dog in the kitchen. So, these things I have learnt through coming here, through coming and listening and other people sharing their experience. So my first meeting that I came to, because life had got totally unmanageable and I didn't know what to do anymore. I couldn't diet anymore. I had given that up. The last diet was a herbal diet. I couldn't wait till tea time to actually physically eat anything. So I rang up my sister-in-law and I said to her, I can't do this anymore. We'd moved up to Christchurch, and that to me was like what they call a geographical, and hoping that things would be better because life was not good. It was not good. My boys were at high school and life was just becoming the absolute pits. But we moved up here to a city that I hated. I didn't want to live in Christchurch ever. I had done it when Mark was born but couldn't handle it, so we moved back down south. But anyway, we moved up with the thought that, and it was my decision to move. Alan was already working up here and his boss had rung me up one night and I'd said no straight away. But by the end of the conversation, I said yes, we would move. So we did move, but for the first 3 months, it was just sheer hell, really. The disease in me, which I learned I had a disease when I came in, just got worse. And life certainly became worse, and the insanity in my head. I couldn't diet, I didn't stop eating, and so the weight came on. I was drinking. I had given up my love for smoking. I stopped smoking years before I came in. I tried thinking it was the coffee, the tea and the Milo, so I gave all them up, just thinking that was the problem. And the problem really stemmed from my mother, because she brought us up on milk puddings and farm cooking. And I heard somebody say that one day and I thought, that's it was Mum's fault. So, but she never actually forced me to sit down and eat it. But so when I couldn't do any more dieting and life had become really, really the pits, I saw an ad in the paper about a 12-step fellowship program and I asked about it and I was told, I think you'll find it's religious. Well, that was the no-no for me, because I was very anti-religion. Anybody mentioned God to me and I would actually give them my verbal opinion of it, and it was never nice. And so I carried on my merry way of eating. But a few weeks, I think it was later, I read it again in the newspaper and it was like a neon sign. So I did what was requested back then, and that was write a letter, and I did that, and I had someone ring me. She shared some of her story on the phone, and then she told me she was going away on holiday for a couple of weeks, and I said, I'll be fine, I'll wait until you come back. And she gave me the phone number of someone else, and I had to ring that number within that 2 weeks, and it took a lot of ringing before somebody answered me. And then I had this woman come round and she came and she shared her story, which I know today is, 12 step. Yeah. I asked a few questions. I think I can remember there was something said about it being a spiritual program, but I didn't ask what that actually meant, because I was the type of person that I made out I knew everything. And I knew absolutely nothing. So anyway, she was thin, I wasn't, and as we were walking out, she told me she didn't have to eat. I won't repeat what I said what I thought, because I thought they don't eat. The love of my life is Elvis Presley and food, and he died. And now you're talking I don't eat. So anyway, it did not stop me off from coming. She, suggested that I come to a meeting. So she came and picked me up for my first meeting, which was a Wednesday night meeting back then. And Kay was there, and she was sitting where Leonie is tonight in the chair, and she had this book on her lap, which is the big book. And there were the steps in that, but I saw none of that. I did see the book. The people that were there just shared their experience. And I just sat there and thought, I felt hope when I left that meeting. I felt that there was people here that were thinking and doing the same as I did. And I never shared it with anyone. And yet they were different. There was something about them. So I came back to my next meeting, the same thing. So I kept coming to meetings, and eventually I started to hear what I needed to hear. And that was, if I want to get well, I need to do certain things. And that was the steps. And I needed to believe in a higher power, and that was that word God. But then I heard that it was a God of my understanding, and I thought, well, I don't understand that. But eventually, I came for about, I think it might have been, around 6 weeks, and it was around this time, actually, of the year it was sometime in June that I came, and I remember I was eating like 3 meals a day. I was just coming to meetings and I was just listening. And I remember my husband, who's now ex-husband, pointing that finger at me and saying, a waste of time you going to those meetings, because I was obviously eating again and seen it all. He'd seen all the diets and everything crazy that I had tried to lose weight, because, if I lost weight I'd be better. But that didn't stop me from coming. And then eventually and I know it was a Thursday night, because I'd sort of thought this, that if I ring up and ask for help, get what was called a food plan, then I would have the weekend to do it, because I had to go to work on Monday, and I knew that once I'd stopped eating I was going to go crazy, because I'd stopped drinking coffee and I had about 2 weeks of headaches and wondered what was wrong with me. And it took me a while to realise it would be the lack of 15 cups of coffee in your body. It was only Greg's and it was black. And so anyway, on the Thursday night I rang someone up and asked her if she would help me. So that's when I started. I got a copy of the big book. I heard that suggested that I read that, and I did. And it didn't matter that it said alcohol in there. There was just something in that book that I could just relate to, particularly the stories in the back, but also I read it from the front to the back, not from the front and a little bit of the back, because that's what I used to do. I always wanted to find out what was the ending of the story like, so I didn't do that this time. And so that was really the beginning when I started on this food plan, and I was told it was only for today, 24 hours. You've just got to do it for today, Robyn, I was told. And I thought that was good, because if somebody had said to me, you can't have an ice cream for the rest of your life, Robyn, I don't know what my reaction really would have been. My thought today is that I couldn't have handled that, because I loved sweets. I loved anything to do with sweets. I read once that being a Taurian, you could eat your sweets first before your meal, so I did that for quite some time. I'd just eat whatever was sweet, dessert first, but I'd still have dessert after the main. So that didn't really work. But I believe those sort of things, because it fitted into what I wanted it to fit into, more food. So I came, and eventually I heard that the steps were there. And eventually I was out walking this dog that we had, and I had the big book with me, and I was out in the park, and I read that part, and it's in the promises. I know that today, but I didn't know at the end that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. And I remember saying out loud, yes, because I went from one day of pigging out and eating and feeling crazy to the next day, and that day in particular, I wasn't as crazy, but I wasn't eating. And it had been removed, and I couldn't believe it. So I kept coming, and I keep coming to this day. And I love it when Kay used to say, golly, I need these meetings. And I'd sit there and think, no, I'd say, God, I need these meetings. It's how I would think, but I totally agree with her. And the longer I've been around, the more I realise how important they are, because it's the only way that I have learnt how to live my life today. I have learnt how to do things today, and how to say things, and how to be nice and not say what I'm thinking, because sometimes lately if I see what I was thinking, I think I would be probably fired, and I'm not a very nice person sometimes in my mind. But I've only learnt that through coming here, and I've only learnt it by wanting to learn it. And that was the other thing. It was being willing to open my mind enough to believe that there is a higher power out there, that there is something bigger than me out there, and that I can change my attitude, I can change my way of life, and I can change my thinking if I really want to. And I wanted to be a better person. I wanted to be not the one that walked in the room and my children, when they were at school, their friends were there and I'd come home from work and they would leave because it would be just the look on my face. And I used to think, why don't they do that with Alan? Why don't they do that with their father? Because he would go in, smiley face and happy, and talk to them. And, I wouldn't, because they'd be watching telly in the middle of the afternoon and I would rip open the curtains and say, how dare you shut the sun out? And these friends would be there. So do you blame them? No. So, these sort of things have all happened to me, and it's nothing to do with me pigging out, basically. I just find, I've been gardening today, I've done some gardening today. Now, I sat in a meeting one day and heard another member say she feels close to God, and she was talking all about this stuff with her hands in the soil, and I will not tell you what I thought, because I just thought, whoa. But it is like that today. I find peace and quiet. I talk to the plants and, they don't talk back, so that's quite good because you get no argument out of them. But these things, I'm not totally obsessive with my cleaning anymore. You probably could find a cobweb in my house, which is pretty amazing. I don't clean my toilet, shame, every day before I go to work, which I used to. Absolutely obsessed with those sort of things. So, there's so many things have changed, and a lot of them have changed. They've just changed. They've just happened. I haven't got up every morning and think, I'm not going to do this today. Oh, there was a time when I did have to ring my sponsor and say to her that I realised I was doing this, and she said, it's like picking up the first one, Robyn. So it was like part of my food plan that I wasn't to do it. And it would be like picking up the first one. And that worked. So I never actually covered having a sponsor, but I do have a sponsor today and have all the time I've been in here, because I couldn't do this on my own. I can't do it on my own. And I didn't particularly like that idea of doing some of those steps, 4 and 5 in particular, or 5, because it was certainly not the things that I was going to talk about. I made those amends for all those things that I stole from the last place that I worked at before we moved to Christchurch. Monetary things. I could have gone to jail because I worked for a government department, but they were very good, and wished me well in my new life. So, all those things that I haven't wanted to do, I've had to do, because I know that if I don't do them, I will eat again. So just by coming here, and then just, as I said, I was driving out tonight and I, look at my little house and I think I've got a house that I never ever thought I would own. When I was married, we bought a house, and then I wasn't married, and I bought the house off him, and which I never thought I'd be able to do. And so now I have a different little house, and I've got a roof over my head, and I'm still working in a job that I've been in for just over 30 years. And I was there this morning because we've got a new site, and they were blessing this new site because the building starts on Monday to build more units for our elderly citizens of Christchurch. So I went along to that and very open-minded with that. It was 8 o'clock in the morning and it was a wee bit frosty, so it was kept very short, which was fine. And some of our residents from the village where I work, they came, which I thought was very good. And there's one of them that she really, really used to annoy me. She really did. And I have found lately, and I just realised it this morning, I can't change her and I'll never be able to change her. And all she wants to do is be helpful. And she got up out of bed this morning and she came just at the back of her, it was, and she was willing to do the dishes and do whatever. And I thought, Robyn, it's not about you. And I look at people differently today. And I think I've heard Leonie say many times, everybody is just trying to do the best that they can. And I think that's all that this person is. And so I believe that that's all God. It's God gives me these ideas in the middle of the night when I know I should be sleeping. But it's also that I'm showing these things when I'm ready to see them. And I believe that today. So that's enough prattle off at me. And it's just lovely to be here, and I'll keep coming because I know this program works if we work at it and just do as what's suggested. Thank you.